Hello and welcome everyone to my first video on Resident Evil theories. In this video I want to take a closer look at the Duke. Yes, you heard correctly. I think there is still so much to say about this peculiar guy. Before we proceed, I want to give you a heads up that there might be spoilers ahead. So for those of you not wanting any spoilers, please add this video to your watch later list and stop watching. While I'm discussing the Duke, I want to deviate from the known facts about this character and delve into a more speculative realm. I truly believe that the Duke is an incredible, mysterious and intriguing character within the Resident Evil universe.
I've been waiting for you, Mr. Winters.
As I played Resident Evil 8, also known as Resident Evil Village, I kind of entered the rabbit hole. Within the Resident Evil universe, there are many interesting and entertaining characters with their own stories, each one screaming for exploration. It did not take very long until the game introduces us to, in my opinion, the most intriguing character of this game, the Duke. He is presented to us shortly before we enter the castle and made a weird impression on me. He seems to always know more than he is willing to share, and overall, I never really felt safe around that guy. His whole behavior never positions itself on a clear I'm your friend or I'm your enemy side. He managed to leave this very question unanswered. But who or what is the Duke? It's apparent that the Duke is not a character like anyone else. His sheer massive size is remarkable. It can be determined in comparison to us playing as Ethan Winters, whom I consider a fairly normal-sized human being. I know, he is decreased and essentially a molded and decomposed something. Let's just ignore that detail for now and assume that whatever remains of Ethan after the events in Louisiana is a human. Hence the Duke cannot exactly be called human, or if he perhaps was, he must be in some way infected or consequently mutated. We quickly realize that the Duke can seemingly move unharmed and without any restrictions within the nameless village somewhere in Romania. He also reaches places that, due to his measurements, should be just out of reach. In contrast to the others, except Mother Miranda, he seems to be able to leave the boundaries of the village too. All of that indicates that there is more to him, which suggests that there is quite a bit untold. One could argue, well, that's just the logic of a video game. You simply need the merchant here and there. But let me tell you, what if that is not the case? What if the answer is not just video game logic? The secret could be much deeper within the story of Resident Evil. Perhaps the Duke is much more deeply rooted within the greater story beyond that specific title. Let's put video game logic aside. We are left with questions like, how does the Duke manage to get into Heisenberg's factory with all his stuff? Especially when Ethan just lived at the bridge, the only way to access the factory. This scenario applies to most location he appears. Ethan opens the way and suddenly the merchant or the Duke is at our service. Maybe he knows shortcuts, but considering his size, how well could those be hidden? It is also a question worth asking, why is the Duke helping us at all? I believe monetary reasons alone are not fitting for a character like him. What could be the Duke's motives? Very interesting it gets towards the end, a mysterious dialogue with the Duke as he is transporting us or our heavily wounded Ethan towards the battle against Mother Miranda, or simply the boss battle. We find ourselves inside the Duke's carriage, which seems to be in motion. Our destination is the ceremony site, as we were told by the cutscene. It becomes totally bizarre once we arrive and exit our cab. We leave the carriage, and at this point it becomes evident that there is no way to get to this place we are right now. But this also implies the Duke himself could not have brought us here. Maybe he's still flying though. At the ceremony site, in this phase of the game, there is simply no access in or out of that area.
At last, he awakes.
Where am I?
My carriage, Ethan. You were having a nightmare.
Duke?
Your battle with Heisenberg was a sight to see. But to think Miranda would show herself.
How long have I been out?
Not long till dawn.
Duke, I need a favor. Take me to Miranda.
I assumed as much and am already on the way. We should arrive shortly.
Thank you.
But Ethan, are you sure of this? Your body is, well, falling apart.
Yes.
Foolish of me to ask.
Speaking of foolish questions, who or what are you?
Even I can't quite answer that. We're here.
I owe you one.
Mr. Winters, I'm afraid you can't return to your old world any longer. Are you ready?
Yeah, I have to be. I gotta go.
Coming back to the mentioned dialogue while being transported, there is this one answer the Duke gives as we are asking him who or what he is. The Duke just replies, "Even I can't quite answer that." Well, we might be satisfied by accepting this as lazy storytelling, or that the writers did not have enough time to fabricate a well-written story here. Or what I believe, the Duke knows exactly what he is, but refuses to answer. This indicates as well that there is more to the Duke than just an infection with the mold or Cadeau. He seems to be a special, almost unique entity, which exists in the world of Resident Evil most likely only once. He also seems to be an incredibly mighty being that is or was in contact with many or all characters within the village. Furthermore, it seems he is respected or at least tolerated by all the others, despite the fact that the Duke is massively helping and actually enabling us to manage the unfolding events. It could be explained by the fact that the Duke could be useful for Mother Miranda and the evil lords in his role as a merchant, importing and organizing goods that are barely available in the village, thus earning him this respect. On the other hand, it could also be possible that he is just too powerful. Hence, Mother Miranda and the evil lords don't want to upset and confront the Duke due to their own fear of him. So they are perhaps just too afraid of his true nature, which leads them to accept his action. Yet, we still don't know what or who the Duke is. All we know is his role seems to be significant.
This must be Miranda's lab.
While exploring Mother Miranda's laboratory, we are given the opportunity to read some of her notes and files regarding her experiments. Even after reading all documents and carefully searching the area, we do not find any hint or reference towards the Duke.
So they're using this to control the bioweapons.
It can be fairly safe said that he is not one of her experiments. Let's recap. The Duke cannot be classified as a human being. He seems to know a lot which he does not like to share. He does not clearly stand on one side. He does business with us as well as characters like Lady Dimitrescu. He is tolerated and very renowned within the village, and he is not an experiment by Mother Miranda. Okay, let's keep it simple. Given all that little information that we have about the Duke, is there not reason to wonder if his connection to everyone involved is perhaps much deeper than it seems? Is there a chance for an answer that gives our observation a more coherent explanation than simply video game logic? How about we consider the Duke as a control organ developed by the megamycete itself in order to protect itself? Being frankly, I experienced the megamycete not as an antagonist of the game. It was never the enemy. The megamycete does not seem to have any motives or desires, nor does it even act at all throughout the game. It rather shines by inactivity. It's a primal entity and for a human perhaps rather an eternal miracle, which has conserved the memory, the feeling, the emotions of countless many people who have died in its proximity. Like a natural data disk, a giant network built by wishes, feeling, hopes, fears, and so on. And now this, for me, peaceful-appearing prehistoric entity gets abused by Mother Miranda and her desire to revive her daughter. And every cruelty she did throughout the almost a century-lasting experiments returns to the megamycete by the dad. Taking this into account means the megamycete had to witness all the acts that Mother Miranda has done over time, all the torment, the pain, and fear her lab rats had to experience will consequently become a part of the megamycete. It would not be surprising if such a fascinating and maybe conscious entity, whose capabilities humans are far away from understanding, would try to resist such an impact, and perhaps start to wonder about a way to defend itself. Hence, it developed, maybe consciously, maybe not, the Duke as an extension of itself. This would empower the megamycete to an extent of having an actual link between it and the outside world. One could imagine that this was not even done with the intention to interfere with brute force, but rather a tool to explore and evaluate. Perhaps even with the intention to understand the acts of those one providing the megamycete with those effects and ultimately make them to its allies. Given by the notes one finds in the game, the Duke deliberately disregards the instructions of Mother Miranda. Also, he is supplying the inhabitants of the village with information, providing, for instance, Jolie with old newspapers. Despite the fact that the megamycete and thus the Duke is disliking the outcomes of Mother Miranda's acts, he seems to have a family-like feeling towards them. Upon selling the remains of Lady Dimitrescu, he responded, "Beautiful, even in death." This indicates that the Duke, or the megamycete, kind of feels responsible for the things that are happening, because bottom line, it's the megamycete itself. It is its mold that enables Mother Miranda, which explains why it's hesitating to directly confront her and the Four Lords. Only when the situation escalates, the village gets rampaged by lichens and thus many people loses their lives, does the Duke, essentially the megamycete, seizes the opportunity to intervene actively. For this he picks Ethan Winters, who is conveniently and very advantageously appearing in the village on time. Perhaps the megamycete guides and supports Ethan through the mass, ultimately using him as a tool or a weapon to get rid of Mother Miranda and the Four Lords, and hence free itself. The ritual Mother Miranda is about to perform itself could also be enough reason to set the megamycete into fear, thus triggering the same response. Let us not forget, Mother Miranda intends to extract a part of the megamycete. If it understands itself with all the personality it has conserved over time as one personality, It may not agree to even take out one single one. How would you feel about the idea of someone wanting to cut out a piece of you? If you ask me, that sounds as terrible as it is. Let's recap. If we consider the Duke as the megamycete as a consequence out of the two given options, or perhaps both, many things would start to make sense. We now have an explanation for the fact that the Duke has incredible knowledge about everything that's going on here. We also have an explanation for the fact that he can travel with ease, as he would just use the mycelium of the mold that spreads throughout everything. And finally the ride with the carriage. Maybe the ride is just the experience Ethan has while traveling bodiless with the Duke throughout the mycelium. Ethan is himself just mold, as we figured out before that very journey, which is perhaps also the reason enabling Ethan to go on this ride at all. Also the fact that the Duke himself is bringing us straight to Mother Miranda seems to indicate that something motivates him to get rid of her, which would fit with the Duke being a protection organism by the megamycete. With that being said, what are your thoughts on the Duke? Do you think the Duke could indeed be some part of the megamycete, or do you think all I've said is just crazy talk? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you like to see more of that content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Until then, stay safe, stranger.